Hello everybody and welcome back to Gaming with Zombie. Zombie here, and today we're doing Idle Champions again in the background, and we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons some more. So today I wanted to do, as you can hear, I have my polyhedral dice with me. Today we're going to do something kind of simple. We're going to talk about the super duper basics of Dungeons and Dragons and what that entails. So, for a lot of people, the first thing that you think of when you think Dungeons and Dragons is, well, it depends on the person, really. Most people are probably like, oh my god, nerds in a basement. Fuck you. Fuck you in the ear. Dungeons and Dragons, at its heart, is realistically what I like to think of as the predecessor for video games, which is why I like it so much. It's actually everything that a video game is, my type of video game specifically, things like RPGs, action RPGs, things of that nature. It's the foundation of that. You get to create this world, you create this character, you level them up, you build them up, you give them story, personality, all of these amazing things, and it's super cool. For a lot of people, though, when you think Dungeons and Dragons, one of the first things that comes to mind, yeah, whatever, leave that in, sure, fuck it, is going to be your dice. Ooh. Now, dice are surprisingly controversial in a lot of circles. Some people have moved on from actual dice to using die rollers, basically random number generators that are specifically tuned to the polyhedral dice that you use in a game of Dungeons and Dragons. That way it does the math for you and it saves time. Also, Samus is here with me on the couch, licking her crotch. That's cool. No one's trying to do a show here, Samus. You enjoy that, buddy. Good job. So, I think kind of what I wanted to do was go over your dice and some of the things that they might be used for. Most important of all of your dice, in my opinion, and probably in a lot of people's opinions, is going to be the D20. The D20 is a 20-sided dice. That sounds really simple. You'd be amazed at how people fuck that up. So, D20 has 20 numbers, 1 all the way up to 20. Sometimes the 1 is a symbol, sometimes the 20 is a symbol, sometimes the 1 and the 20 are a symbol. It just depends on who's making your dice. You have a lot of variation on what you can get. There are metal dice, there are plastic dice, there are wooden dice, basically any material you can think of. Somewhere out there, someone has made a fucking D20 out of it. It's just, that's the way of the world. Now, a D20 is super useful in D&D. It's basically whenever you want to do anything, a lot of times there's going to be a 20-sided die involved. That can be like when you want to see if you can look at something, inspect something, appraise something. If you want to every time you attack, you roll a d20, and if it's a certain high value or whatever, then there's a chance to hit. D20s are really the core to the game. If you land on a 20, that's called a critical success. Oftentimes, it counts as an automatic hit. Now, different games play their, crit hits differently, but pretty much universally, if you roll a dice and it lands on 20, it's always going to be a hit. Now, if you roll it and it succeeds, as in you roll the dice, you land on a 20, you roll again, and it's above the armor class of your opponent, you get a critical attack. When you get a critical attack, that is basically double damage. It can be a lot of things, but oftentimes it's going to be double damage. And double damage is friggin' sweet. You go from doing 40 damage to doing, 80 or 100 damage, depending on what your... And I dropped it. Depending on what your modifiers are. You can get boosts on critical attacks and things of that nature. So the D20 is your best friend. Or your worst enemy, if you're me. I have a really bad habit of rolling horribly low when I do anything. It's actually become kind of a running gag amongst the D&D groups that I'm in. We oftentimes will shit talk me. That's why so often I build characters that hit on very low rolls, specifically to counteract the fact that I guarantee you I'm going to roll horribly every time, every single time. So I have to build characters that will cheat the RNG gods for me and allow me to actually succeed as a character. Otherwise, I just fail horribly, constantly. So, all in all, usually you're looking at around 7 dice when you have a polyhedral set of dice. So we're going to go down to our next big one, which is going to be the D12. It's a 12-sided dice. It looks a lot like a D20. Obviously less sides. Who would have thought? D12s, I don't see a lot of usage for D12s very often. If you're really lucky, depending on what sort of weapons you use, these are damage dice. You're going to roll these to see how much damage your weapon did when you're fighting something. Things that use That was a hiccup. Things that use D12s are going to be like heavy axes, things of that nature. Some big swords will use a D12. What you're looking at a lot of times is either 2d6 or 1d12. And you can argue that 2d6 is actually better than 1d12. 2d6, obviously, you have a max potential of 12, but you have a minimum potential of 2. So that's technically better than the d12 because you can get a 1 on a d12. So it's going to be really sad if you roll your d12 to do damage and you're like, oh, I swing my mighty blade and I get 1 damage. Of course, one of the nice things is you have modifiers to that, so you may get your 1 damage on that and then plus 50 damage from your strength and all the other bullshit that you have on there. It's possible, believe me, I should know. So next, we have your D10. D10's a weird little flying saucer shape. It has a 1 all the way through to a 0. 0 meaning 10 in this instance. These are also damage dice. I've never really seen a lot of usage for these other than that. Every once in a while, you'll use these as counters as well. So if something lasts for 10 rounds or something along those lines, you can set this guy down and be like, okay, we have this many rounds left of whatever. Same thing though, damage dice, 1d10 damage. It's useful, but a lot of people really are not going to see too terribly much use out of that. In the same sort of vein as that, we have pretty much an identical dice. This is a percentile dice, and this is also a 10-sided die, but this one has 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 00 for 100. And percentile dice are going to be for when you have like a percentage chance to do something, or somebody does a splash weapon. Roll a percentile dice to see whether or not it hit you, or roll a percentile dice to see whether or not your ass is immolated when your sorcerer accidentally sets off a spell and you happen to be way too close. So that's kind of what their usage is. Percentile dice can be a good thing. They're actually pretty decent in terms of storytelling. When you have these really stiff numbers that don't have any give or take, or they all have chance, but a percentile is like a better chance sort of system. It really adds a nice little element, a nice little touch to everything when you have to roll a percentile to see whether or not something is affected. So next, we have a D8. Now a D8 is an 8-sided dice. This one's actually pretty common. A lot of people have seen these. These are basically 2 pyramids shoved together. Easy. So they go 1 to 8. They are often damage dice, pretty much consistently damage dice. They also hurt a lot if you step on them. Side note, just saying, whatever. But yeah, these are damage dice. A lot of things will do 1d8 damage or 2d8 damage, that sort of thing. So that's what that is. The most painful dice to step on, however, would be... Well, we're not doing that one yet. I skipped ahead. I'm so sorry I failed you. Ugh. So next we're going to do a D6. Now, everybody knows what a D6 is. D6, when you think of dice, D6s are literally what everyone thinks of. They're the cube, 6-sided dice. So these are super common. You will see D6s to hell and back. Oftentimes, people will buy an actual set of D6s, which is going to be something like 3, 6, 9... I don't know, like 5 layers of 9 dice. A lot of times, spells like Fireball, a couple of other ones that are really common, really well known, they will use D6s. So fall damage also is D6s. So if you fall from a certain height, you will take X D6 damage. So a certain quantity of D6s per... Usually it's like 50 or 100 feet. So fall damage hurts. Oh god, fall damage is so bad. You think it's bad in video games. No, it's way worse. Actually, it's a really viable technique for a lot of games because, you know, they want everything to be harrowing. So you're on a cliffside, you're fighting along, and all of a sudden you get tied up by these very swift grapplers, and they will throw your ass off the side of the cliff, and you will die from fall damage. A 300-foot fall, you're probably going to die. If you aren't, you wish you were. So these are also fireball damage. One of the best ways to know that you're in a shit ton of trouble is when you start playing the game and you get hit by a fireball, and the DM's like, does anybody have some extra D6s? You're like, wait, what? Yeah, I need 15. I only have 5. Does anybody have 10 D6s I could borrow? Oh, God. Also, like, the waiting game, when someone's rolling D6s, like, let's see, yeah, 5 minutes of just dropping D6s. That's what fireball damage is. That's why sorcerers are your friend. Fireball, side note, fun side note. A lot of the people that develop D&D and Pathfinder and things of that nature, they are actually flat out honest, and they say that Fireball is so overpowered. It's literally done that way to be a callback to like original Dungeons and Dragons back in the Gaiax days. And it is huge and hurts. We'll cover Fireball formation later on. And lastly... Technically not lastly, but our last actual dice. We have a 4-sided die. Now, 4-sided die actually come in a couple of variations. The most traditional is just a 3-sided pyramid. It has 4 sides total, the 3 faces and then the bottom face. These are absolutely the worst dice to ever step on. They hurt. They're basically caltrops. They will cause you immense amounts of pain. These dice are typically used for 1d4 rounds of poison or 1d4 acid splash damage. You know, your max is going to be 4. It's not really, you're not going to get any boosters to that. It's just going to be 1d4 damage. Tends to be pretty early stuff, like Acid Splash, which is a level 0 spell, or level 1, depending on what sort of game you're playing. But in Pathfinder, Acid Splash is a level 0 spell. So basically it's a cantrip, it's a free spell that you can use as many times a day as you'd like. But it's also very weak, so you probably aren't going to use it that often. Also, like I said, rounds of poison. If you're playing a rogue and you poison somebody, some poisons will deal 1d4 rounds of poison damage or 1d4 rounds of a status ailment. Those are pretty common things, so you'll definitely see that a lot. They also have some other shapes to them sometimes, and those are nifty. But you're definitely going to see the pyramid the most often. Now, there is another dice that we technically will use for some situations. It's called a D2. Now, this is going to sound really simple for a lot of people, but when I was first starting out, I actually had a huge problem because I had no idea what a D2 was. I feel really dumb now, having played for many years, but at the time, I had no clue, and I looked everywhere trying to find it, and I just could not find any information on what the hell a D2 was, or what the value of a D2 was. A D2 is a two-sided dice, which is not a dice at all, it's a coin. So you have one face that is worth 1, and one face that is worth 2. Now, what are you going to use a D2 for? Well, not a lot, honest to God. You're not going to see a lot of D2 usage. One of the only things that you're going to see D2s for would be like figuring out hit points on a small creature. Or things of that nature. Maybe damage for a small creature, such as like a gnome or a halfling. I think gnomes and halflings are both small. One of them may be medium. I think they're both small though. But a D2 is literally just a friggin' coin. So if something calls for a D2, you can flip a coin, you can write 1 on one side and flip a coin. That's what you get. Heads is 2 points, tails is 1 point. I know it seems so dumb, but it took me way too long to figure that crap out. So your dice are going to be your friends. These are really important. They are an integral part to Dungeons and Dragons, and really and truly, dice take on sort of like a personality for a lot of people that play them. If you're bad luck, like I am, people will very nicely, or sometimes not so nicely, request that you please not touch their dice because you're going to curse them with your bad luck. A lot of people will be like, the dice are rolling well for me tonight, or these are my killing my party dice for DMs. For other people, they're your mortal foes. When you meet people who play Dungeons and Dragons, you're going to see people who have 5-6 sets of dice minimum. They come in every shape and size, and, people collect them a lot of times. So it's important to have a lot of dice, because sometimes your dice will start acting up and you'll keep getting shit rolls, and realistically it's RNG, it's just the way of the world. But you're gonna be pissed as hell that D20 keeps screwing you over and over and over again with the low rolls. So there have been many occasions when I have gotten mad at my D20 for screwing me over, popped it in my mouth, chewed on him, and then spit it across the room in anger. My party's like, that is super gross. Please don't do that. And I'm like, no, he knows what he did. He knows what he did. He deserved every bit of it. You'll also see people who microwave their dice, or they shame their dice with those little signs. You can find those on Reddit. It's very funny. But yeah, so that's your intro to dice. It's very simple. It's kind of dumb, but it's super useful knowledge for why you need this and what they're commonly going to be used for. Now, did I cover everything? No, there's still going to be uses for these dice that you're not necessarily going to see, but this was pretty much a good way to get you started on what you need, what they'll be used for, And yeah, so there you go. Like I said before in my last update video, we're starting to do a little more focus on D&D content. I'm gonna do some intros to D&D and some like how to build a character, you know, stuff like that. So if you enjoy D&D content or any of my other gaming content, please come back, watch our videos, subscribe, do all the things. I don't know why I said our videos. It's literally just me. Ooh, no, Samus is here. It's me and Samus. She's useless, but at least she's here. So, yeah, come back, check out some stuff. I hope you learned something, and let me know if you found this helpful, or if you had something that you wanted to add in that I missed. Like, no, you fool, these dice are for this. If you do that, I'm probably going to reply to you and acknowledge you, but I'm going to make fun of you on the inside. That's what counts. So anyway, thank you all for watching, and we will catch you in the next video. Bye-bye!